Start with the first cookie. This is a Betty Crocker peanut butter cookie mix. Pack of 3 mixes in here. I got it from Sam's Club. Each mix says you can make 22 normal size cookies, but I use an extra large scoop so my cookies don't yield as many, but mine are bigger. Forgot to open the pack, so that's what I'm doing here. Pouring it into the KitchenAid stand mixer. It's a 5-quart stand mixer. Sorry about jumping in front of the camera there. Checking the box, make sure I get the right amount of ingredients to add. The mix calls for 3 tablespoons of vegetable oil, second one, and here's the third one. Getting all that vegetable oil out. Now I have to add some water, and I have a measuring cup there with water. But then I realized, oh, I just used oil for this tablespoon. So I'm going to the sink to rinse that out, because oil and water don't mix. Now I'm back drying it off, and I'll dip it in there and get that 1 tablespoon of water. So the instructions call for the 3 tablespoons of vegetable oil, the 1 tablespoon of water, and 1 egg. This vanilla, which I bought from Costco that I'm adding, that is something that I add. It's not required, but I like the added flavor that it brings to the cookies. So I'm adding 2 tablespoons of vanilla. And here's the 1 egg. It's a large egg. And if you crack it on the counter, you have less chance of losing shells in there, although I did drop one there, but it was easy to get it out of the mixer. Just putting that in the trash. My eggs are at room temperature. Making sure I get all the vanilla out of there, out of the measuring spoon. Then we just turn the mixer on and let it mix. And speed it up a little bit. I had to go get my apron. I forgot my Cookie Monster apron. Can't make cookies without Cookie Monster in the house somehow, some way. Scraping down the sides, making sure everything gets incorporated. Now this one I'm adding some Reese's peanut butter cups. I use the extra, or the king size, sorry, candy bars, and there's 3 of them in there, so 12 total. Now I'm going to mix that a little bit. When you add your mix-ins to your cookie dough, you don't want to mix it too much with the mixer, because that'll break them up. And I looked, I said, hey, that's not enough cookies, so I'm going to double it. Putting another egg in there, and putting another mix, 3 more tablespoons of vegetable oil, tablespoon of water, and I'm also going to do 2 tablespoons of vanilla. Because again, I use a large scoop. And I knew there wasn't going to be enough cookies with just 1 mix. Just making sure, scraping down the sides and the bottom, make sure everything's getting mixed in. You need to do that with your stand mixer every so often. Now I'm looking in there and I think, I don't think there's enough Reese's candy bars in there. So I got another king size. It's 4 cups in each package, so it ended up with 16 regular size Reese's candy bars in this mix. And I just kind of broke them up in 4s, mixed it just a little bit. Now that looks a little better. I can actually see some of the candy bars in there. before I really couldn't, and it's like, well, I'm trying to make a double peanut butter cookie here. This is a recipe my brother asked me to try. Okay. Moving things out of the way. And now I'm going to do the same thing. 2 packs of the Betty Crocker mix. Although I'm going to use a different mix in. 6 tablespoons of vegetable oil. 2 tablespoons, well actually 4 of vanilla and 2 large eggs. Mix it up a little bit. And to speeding up the video, because I watched or let you see the whole process before. So here I'm adding some Hershey's chocolate bars and some milk chocolate chips, which I'm going to add right here. And I didn't really measure the chocolate chips, but I guess it's about a cup that I added. Again, my younger brother wanted to try a peanut butter chocolate chip cookie, I guess is what it will be called. You don't want to mix it up too much. You'll break up your mix-ins. You just want to get it just a little incorporated. And sometimes I don't even use the stand mixer. I'll just use the spatula to kind of mix it in. Now I'm cleaning off the attachment, getting as much of the dough off of it as possible. Unplugging it. Always unplug my stand mixer before I start disassembling it with the attachment and everything. Now I'm bringing over a cookie sheet. I'm going to make 2 of each cookie, so that my siblings, older sister, younger brother, can test them out, checking the baking instructions. There they are. While they're baking, I'm going to go ahead, because I'm freezing this cookie dough. So I'm scooping out the Reese's peanut butter cookies, and then I'm going to scoop out the peanut butter chocolate chip cookies. And I flash freeze them for at least an hour, and then I will bag them in Ziploc bags. And I'm speeding up the process here with the video. And you see how big my cookies are because I use that large scoop. And that's why I ended up doubling the batter. Trying to get all of the cookie dough out of there. And had a little bit left. Decided to fill it in where I thought some of the cookies were smaller than the others. Taking it to the freezer to flash freeze. And they cooked for 14 minutes, and my siblings love them. My sister ate the chocolate ones and ate one of those, and my brother ate the other 3, and they loved them all. Now they've been in the freezer for a little over an hour, and now I'm going to bag them up in my Ziploc bags. Showing you the label. I write the date, name of the cookie, and baking instructions on each bag. My brother is the one that usually bakes the cookies. Once a week he'll bake cookies for my sister, himself, and I. And we call it his bakery. So that's why I label it. And also I give some of these away as gifts. Here's another label. Showing the cookie up close. I usually try to get 12 in each one, but I think I got a couple extra in here because I didn't want to use 3 bags when I could just get away with 2 Ziploc bags. And there they are, bagged up, ready to go into the freezer. It's always nice to have fresh baked cookies at any time you want by just going to the freezer and getting some. Now let's make some world's worst chocolate chip cookies. And I tripled this batter. And it's just a play on words. These are really the best chocolate chip cookies. Now I add Hershey's candy bars to them. So I'm speeding up the video. For each batter, I break up 6 Hershey candy bars. So since I'm tripling this, I'm going to be breaking up this little bowl a total of 18 Hershey candy bars. And I like to do that first before I start actually making the cookie dough. That way when I get to the part of the mix-ins, I can just dump the mix-ins and go. And basically whenever I'm cooking with chocolate chips, one, I use milk chocolate chips. I don't like the semi-sweet. It leads to a bitterness to the cookie and I don't like that. And whenever I use the chocolate chips, I'm going to use the Hershey candy bars as well. Okay, I'm back. Now I have assembled. These are the chocolate chip morsels. And below that are the Hershey bars. I'll come up there. And here I have the flour, cornstarch, baking powder, baking soda, and salt. So I've already whisked it together. And again, I'm tripling the recipe. So to start, in a large bowl, we stir together the brown sugar and the sugar, and we have melted butter. So the melted butter. You do need to let it cool. The recipe says for at least 10 minutes. I let mine cool a little bit more than that. And this is unsalted butter. And because I'm tripling the recipe, I'm using my 8-quart KA mixer, but a 5-quart won't handle triple the recipe. Not enough capacity on the 5-quart. As you can see, this is a 5-quart bowl, and it's almost full with just the flour mixture. So, raise it up, turn it on. And you add them one at a time and stir until combined before you add the milk. make Buffys World chocolate chips. And we're tripling the batter. Speeding up the video, I'm adding in the flour. A little bit at a time. And this time, just to remind everyone, I don't know if I said it before, but this is my 8-quart KitchenAid lift stand mixer. Stopping for a little bit, scraping the sides, making sure everything can incorporate it. Now I'm adding all of the chocolate chips and the Hershey bars. And the note there, I tripled this recipe, and you will see in a second, that was too much. I should have only doubled it. So for now, I'll remember to only double it, because it was just about overflowing out of the stand mixer. And again, this is 8-quart stand mixer. Trying to get as much as the batter off of the attachment. And one of the reasons this is called the world's worst chocolate chip cookie is you have to actually put it in the refrigerator for at least 30 minutes before you can either cook them or, in my case, freeze them. Taking the attachment out. Because I'm going to use it on the next cookie. But I'm going to cover it, because you do have to cover it before you put it in the refrigerator. So I'm using some saran wrap to cover it. And this mixing bowl was so heavy. You know, stainless steel to begin with, then it's pretty much filled to the brim with cookie dough. I'm going to go ahead and put a second piece of saran wrap on here. Trying to get as good a seal on it as possible. And off to the refrigerator. Bed this up. Here I am. It's been in there at least 30 minutes. And I'm putting it on the sheet to flash freeze it. And I'm putting these close together because I'm not baking them, so I don't have to worry about any spread or anything. And towards the end of the video, I will list the totals that I came up with for each cookie and the grand total. So please stay tuned. Stick around to find out what the totals were. And in my opinion, this is the best chocolate chip cookie, homemade chocolate chip cookie recipe out there. And if anyone wants any of these recipes, please email me. The email is in the description of the video. But this one I will actually link in the description, because you can go to the website and I think it's sugarspoon.com and get this recipe. And in my opinion, what makes it so good is you use maple syrup, which I know sounds weird. It sounded weird to me when I first saw the recipe, but I think that maple syrup sets the cookie apart and makes it, again, in my opinion, the best chocolate chip cookie out there. Get all of the dough out of there. Now, I'm going to make Buffys World chocolate chip cookies. And this is what I did. I made this cookie dough up while the world's worst was in the refrigerator. And it pretty much follows the same recipe until we get to the mix-ins. Well, I shouldn't say that, because I came up with this and I tweaked a couple different recipes, added this, took away from that. But I do use maple syrup in here. I use a little bit more brown sugar and sugar than called for in normal or regular chocolate chip cookie recipes. And right here, I'm pouring the melted butter into the sugar, and it's brown sugar and white sugar, granulated sugar. You melt the butter, and then you need to let it cool for at least 10 minutes. I let it cool a little bit longer than that usually, because if you don't and you put your eggs in there, it'll cook the eggs. There I have all the dry ingredients which you need to sift together. And here's my eggs. I did triple this recipe as well. And in the future, I will only double it because my 8-quart stand mixer, which you'll see towards the end, it was a struggle to keep all the ingredients in there. Putting all of the eggs in there one at a time. They're large eggs. And the vanilla. I added 6 tablespoons because for one recipe it calls for, I used 2 tablespoons, so I needed to do 3. Here's the maple syrup going in there. It's a 1/4 cup per batter, and I had to do 3/4 cup because I tripled the batter. Now I'm adding the dry ingredients. And it says to add the dry ingredients a little bit at a time, not to just dump it in there, so that's what I did. Stop the mixer for a little bit, scraping the sides to make sure everything's getting incorporated. And now I notice there's no way I'm going to be able to get all the mix-ins in here because there's quite a few mix-ins. So I used the mixing bowl from when I made the world's worst chocolate chip cookie, and I'm going to take half the batter out and put it in there and then do the mix-ins. So I just got I think that's a cup, measuring cup, and I'm just scooping out, and I eyeballed it to where, you know, it was half in each bowl. And when you see all the mix-ins, you'll see why. I was like, this isn't going to work. I gotta take some of this dough out of here. I love the world's worst chocolate chip cookie, but this is my favorite of all times because, one, I made it up and it's got a little bit of everything in there. If you just like a pure chocolate chip cookie, just nothing but chocolate chips, make the world's worst. But if you like nuts and other mix-ins, this is the cookie to make. It still tastes like a chocolate chip cookie, but there's so much more to it. Here I'm adding the chocolate chips, the milk chocolate chips, and the Hershey candy bars, which have been broken up. And I'm just eyeballing, putting half in each bowl, going back and forth. A little bit in one bowl, then a little bit in the other bowl. Now we gotta add the other mix-ins. Now we're gonna add the coconut. And this is sweetened coconut. And I use Baker's coconut. I think that's the best coconut out there on the market when you're going to be doing some baking. It's one that my mother used, and I just kept using it because that's what I grew up with. Here's some oats. This is Quaker oats. Like I said, if you like other things added to your chocolate chip cookie, this is the one to make. But if you want just a pure chocolate chip cookie, make the world's worst. And now you can see why there's no way I was going to get all these mix-ins added into that one bowl. So that's why I had to take half out, get into the other bowl. And I know you're probably thinking, oh, that's the last mix-in, but is it? Let's see. I'm going to mix it up a little bit in the bowl that's on the stand mixer. And it was so heavy to raise this because there's so much in there. And I'm keeping my hands on the side because see how it's kind of sloshing around and sloshing outside onto the counter. I know I could have put a towel over the mixer, but I don't think that would have really helped in that situation. So now we're going to add some chopped pecans. And these are pecans I buy. They're pecan halves I buy at Sam's, and then I just, I have a kitchen mallet that I use, and I punch it on the bag of the pecans to break it up. And again, I'm just eyeballing the addition of it. And you can see all the mix-ins in the batter filled an 8-quart bowl. Now if you just do one serving of the cookies, it'll work in the 8-quart, but you know, I tripled it. And there's just no way it was going to fit in there with all the mix-ins. So now I'm just mixing the first bowl together a little bit. And again, you don't want to mix it too much because it'll break up your mix-ins, make them into crumbs, and you really don't want that. Now I got to take that off. Got to get the attachment off first. Got that off. Move that out of the way. And like the world's worst, this needs to be refrigerated for at least 30 minutes before you either bake them or flash freeze them. So I'm covering it with saran wrap. And I'm going to do both bowls like that and put it in the refrigerator for at least 30 minutes. While that's going on, here's the Quaker Oats oatmeal recipe. This is a recipe I pulled off of the Quaker Oats website. It's one I made years ago, and it's, in my opinion, the best oatmeal cookie recipe out there. In that bowl, I have granulated white sugar and brown sugar. And we're going to add the butter. Butter is at room temperature, and the softened butter. Now this I didn't double or triple. This is just one batch. And if you're new to baking, when you're making cookies, you're going to need at least 2 bowls because you'll have one for your wet ingredients or whatever you're going to be creaming together, which is going to be usually your fats, which in this case is the butter, and your sugars. Sometimes it's going to be Crisco shortening, which I have some recipes later on in the video that uses that. And then you have your dry ingredients, which is usually your flour, baking soda, salt, baking powder. And with the world's worst and Buffys World chocolate chip cookies, we also add cornstarch. I decided to cut the butter into 3 pieces to make it a little easier to cream with the sugar. I find if you just put the whole stick in there, it just clumps up on the attachment. It doesn't really cream that well. You just have to keep stopping to get the butter off of the attachment. I had to go get a towel to wash my hands a little bit from opening the butter. And now we're going to start creaming the sugar and the butter. I'm going to be making 3 different kinds of oatmeal cookies. I'm going to show the full process on this first batch, and the rest I'm going to speed up. Here's my dry ingredients. Like I said, you need 2 bowls, and if you're going to do any mix-ins, you need 3 bowls because you can put your mix-ins in another bowl. Now this is just going to be an oatmeal cookie. I'm not going to add any mix-ins to it. And when I'm referring to mix-ins, I'm talking about with oatmeal cookie raisins or chocolate chips or anything like that. Here's my large egg. I'm going to be using vanilla. And there's the oats. I bought my oats from Sam's Club. You can get 2 big bags of oats. Pretty decent price. I think it's about $10, something like that. Scraping the sides a little bit. Again, when you use your stand mixer, you need to stop the stand mixer every so often, scrape the sides, so you make sure everything's getting incorporated, mixed in together. Just checking the recipe again, make sure I'm following the steps. I think it's important if you're following a recipe to have it printed out and at your disposal so you can refer to it as you're baking or cooking every so often. And when I'm using flavors or any kind of seasonings, I always shake them up before I put them in my whatever I'm cooking. Things will settle and separate, so it's important to shake it up a little bit. There's the large egg going in, and I have my trash right there next to me on my left, so that's what I was reaching for, to throw the eggshell away. I'm adding 2 tablespoons of vanilla. Usually when I'm making cookies, it'll ask for some kind of flavor, usually vanilla, and it'll usually say 1 or 2 teaspoons. I ignore that. I always put 2 tablespoons. Now I want to stop it again, make sure everything's getting mixed in before we add the dry ingredients. And when you're making cookies, most recipes you will, like I said, cream the fat with the sugar. Add your flavor and your egg. Then you add your dry ingredients, and if there's any mix-ins, that's the last thing you do before you have your cookie, which is ready to be baked or frozen. And your dry ingredients, it's important to sift them all together. And I just use the whisk. I'm saying sift, but whisk them together. And with this one, I don't have to add them a little at a time. I can add the dry ingredients all at once. So that's what I'm doing here. I stopped the mixer and added the dry ingredients. Starting the mixer back up. Now I'm going to measure out, and I believe I need 3 cups of oats. I'm going to measure that out, put it in the bowl that I had the flour in. Stopping the stand mixer again to scrape the sides, scrape the batter off of the attachment to make sure it's all incorporated. I know that may seem tedious, but can you imagine back in the day when anybody was baking and they didn't have any kind of electric mixers, either handheld or stand mixer, and they had to do all this by hand? I can't even imagine that. Mix it up a little bit more. And I am showing the long process for this oatmeal cookie recipe. The other 2 I make, I'm going to speed up the video because it follows the same recipe till I get to the mix-in part. Now I'm adding the oats. And I'm getting the 3 cups of oats ready for the next batch of oatmeal cookies, which is going to have a mix-in. besides the oats, of course. This is just a plain oatmeal cookie that I'm getting on the cookie sheet to flash freeze. I sped this up because same process with all the cookies. Getting all the batter out of there. Now we're going to do this all over again, but this time we're going to do oatmeal raisin. And I'm not doubling the recipe, I just did one batch of it. So starting with the sugar and brown sugar and the butter, we need to cream it together. And these are my raisins. I had them soaking for at least 15-20 minutes in warm water. And then I was drying them off a little bit. Scraping down the sides. Adding the egg. The vanilla. Whisking my dry ingredients a little bit. Sorry about my big hand getting in front of the camera. Now I'm adding all the flour, the dry ingredients. Letting it mix together and get incorporated. Time to add the raisins. And you definitely don't want these to mix too long because that'll really just shred them up. The mixer will just shred up the raisins. You just wanted to get it a little incorporated. And scraping down the sides, make sure all the cookie dough is getting mixed in. Cleaning off the attachment a little bit. Mix it up just a little bit more. Next up is the Quaker Oats Oatmeal Chocolate Chip. This is not doubled, and I'm speeding up the video because it's just like the other oatmeal cookie recipe. Creaming the sugars and the butter together. I measured out the chocolate chips. Already broken up the Hershey candy bars in that bowl and just added the chocolate chips to it. Scraping the sides of the bowl down to make sure everything's combined. Doing that again. Adding the egg, the vanilla. Scraping again the bowl down a little bit and the attachment. Whisking together the dry ingredients. Adding all of the dry ingredients. Cleaning up a little bit there. Scraping the sides again and the attachment to make sure everything's getting combined. Adding the oats. Mixing that together a little bit. Stopping the mixer to add in the chocolate chips and the broken up Hershey candy bars. And again, you don't want to mix these too long with the mixer because that'll just break them up into crumbs. So just enough to get it combined. Or you can just use your spatula and mix it up instead of using the mixer. Scraping everything off the attachment with my spatula. And these were ready to be put on the cookie sheet to flash freeze. And I just added them onto the last cookie sheet I used because the cookie sheet wasn't full yet. I had a few more left, so I got a smaller cookie sheet to put those on. And then they'll be going to the freezer to flash freeze for at least an hour. Now let's make the Ranger cookies. And I did double this recipe. This is a recipe I found online. First time I had Ranger cookies, well the only time, it's the ones from Crocker. And they were delicious, so I wanted to try to make some. This bowl I have the white sugar and the brown sugar. Gonna cream that with the butter. Gonna plug in the KA. Gonna cut my butter into 3 pieces for each stick. Make it a little bit easier to cream together with the sugar, and the butter is at room temperature. Now I do prefer the Kroger Ranger cookie, but they don't sell those anymore. This one is a good, I would say copycat, but not quite as good as the Kroger one. If anyone has that Kroger recipe, please drop a comment and let me know, because I would love to get a copy of it. And thanks in advance for that. Gotta get all the papers off the wrappers off the butter. Putting that in the trash, the wrappers that is. Wiping my hands a little bit from touching the butter, and now we're going to start up the mixer. While the sugars and butter are creaming, stepped away for a quick minute to bring over some more of the ingredients. That was the dry ingredients, the flour mixture. We're also going to be adding that's coconut and Rice Krispie cereal in the bowl I'm holding. And that's what makes the Ranger cookie a Ranger cookie. Now I'm going to add the egg, 1 large egg. Actually, there's another one. Shake up on vanilla. 2 tablespoons of vanilla. And that's why I had double the egg, because I forgot I did double this recipe. It wasn't just one recipe. Adding the dry ingredients now. And this I could add them all. Add all the dry ingredients at one time. Didn't have to add a little bit at a time. Mix that together. Tidy up a little bit. Now it's time to add the coconut and Rice Krispie cereal. That's been added. Again, make it a mess, little spillage. Now I'm scooping it out. Showed you what the cookie looked like, speeding it up. This will be flash frozen for at least an hour before putting into the Ziplocs to freeze. And I will show a picture of the freezer when it's full of the cookies, as well as when I had them all bagged up on the counter. That'll be at the end of the video. Trying to get as much of that dough out of there as possible. This is the Ranger cookies I'm bagging up now. Basic cookie recipe. And I'm going to add the peanut butter and milk chocolate chips and Hershey candy bar pieces to this. And this is just a basic cookie recipe that you can start with. And I'm going to make also a version of them with the M&Ms. Decided to pour that peanut butter and milk chocolate chips into the bowl with the Hershey's. Might as well, because it's going in there together when we get to that point. And this was different. I said earlier that most cookies, when you start out, you're creaming the fat with the sugars. This one you just cream the butter first. And you're going to slowly add your brown sugar and sugar to it. And this is a good basic cookie recipe if you want to add different things to them. Like I experiment in the kitchen. I have candy in the house. I just add candy to the cookies. I've added 1,000-gram candy bars. Let's see, Kit Kats, I think I've added that. Of course, Hershey candy bars. Snickers, of course, I've added that. Caramellos. I mean, whatever you want to try adding. And the egg. And this calls for 3 eggs. Here's the second one. And after you add each egg, you need to let the mix a little bit to make sure the egg is fully incorporated before you add the next one. And now here's the third egg, and these are large eggs. Always cook with large eggs. Now I'm going to add the vanilla, 2 tablespoons of vanilla. Speeding up the mixer just a little bit. Stop it to scrape the sides. Make sure everything's getting incorporated. Now I've added the dry ingredients, tidying up a little bit. Mixing that together, getting it incorporated by the mixer. Now we're going to add the peanut butter chips, milk chocolate chips, and the Hershey candy bar pieces. I found the bag of the Nestle peanut butter and milk chocolate chips at Crocker. I had never seen it before, and I was like, oh man, I'm gonna try that. Make some cookies with it. I made cookies with the Nestle butterscotch cookies. Those were pretty good too, and I followed this basic cookie recipe. And when it came to the mixins, I added the butterscotch chips. Now we're just scooping this out onto the cookie sheet. This is next to the other cookies we just finished. Now we're bagging them up. This is the peanut butter chocolate chip cookies we just made. We flash froze them. Now we're bagging them up. They're bagged up. Here's the basic cookie recipe, and we're going to add M&Ms to this. And I'm speeding up the video because it's the same method we used on the last cookies. Cream the butter by itself. And then we add in the sugar and brown sugar. A little bit at a time. Measuring out the M&Ms. Those are regular M&Ms. It was the Halloween version. They were on clearance at Sam's, so I got those. Adding the 3 eggs, one at a time. Allowing the mix to incorporate each egg after I add it before adding the next egg. Adding the 2 tablespoons vanilla. Here's my dry ingredients. Pouring it all in there. Mixing it together. And now it's time for the M&Ms. I always said I wanted to make some M&M cookies. I never had till when I made these. So again, always unplug your mixer before you take it apart and start scooping out any cookies or anything else you have in it. Putting these on the cookie sheet for flash freezing. And now they've been frozen and I'm just bagging them up. There's part of the progress. We're not done yet. A local bakery was called Roselyn Bakery, and this is their cookbook. We'll make 2 cookies from their cookbook. First up are toffee cookies. And I didn't double this is just a regular batch. So in here, this is when I'm using that Crisco shortening. And again, if anyone wants the recipe, just leave a comment or email me and I'll send it to you. There's some butter in there, there's Crisco shortening, and there's sugar in there. Creaming that together. I don't know about you guys, but I hate touching Crisco shortening. It just feels gross on my fingers, on my hands. I hate using that stuff, but this is what they use. Getting the eggs together, and I dropped an egg. It didn't crack all the way, but it did get a good dent on it. See that dent? But I'm going to use it. Speed the mixture up a little bit. Make sure it gets a good cream on it. And ask for milk. And I have 2% milk on hand. And ask for this macaroon coconut. I had to order this online from that Quality Life Natural Foods. I have made these before and they taste really good. Here's the toffee I'm making or using. It's the English toffee by Heat. English toffee bits. Last time I made this, I only used one bag and I didn't think it was enough toffee, so I'm going to put 2 bags in there this time. Start adding the eggs. And you do add them one at a time, let it incorporate before you add the next one. And stop the mixer. Make sure the sides and everything's getting incorporated. I'm going to add the milk. Milk is at room temperature. That's where the eggs and the flours, the coconut flour and the just regular flour. All the cookies I made, I had that all at room temperature. And here's that coconut macaroon flour getting ready to go in. I'm going to stop the mixer because I'm pretty sure it will fly around all over if I had it on as I was adding it. I only asked for 1 cup. Now I do keep my flours in the freezer, so when I say it's at room temperature, I do mean it's at room temperature. I set it out along with any milk or butter or eggs that I'll be using. Here's the rest of the dry ingredients. Putting a little bit in there at a time. And I tried to add about a third, maybe a fourth at a time of the dry ingredients. I'm going to stop the mixer, add that little bit of dry ingredients, and then start it up a little bit, and then add the next batch. If you add it all at once, it's just going to fly all around, all over your counters, floor, and everywhere else. So that's why I did a little bit at a time. One of my hands on the side of the mixer to try to prevent as much as possible the flour flying all around on the counters and or floor. Again, nice to have that towel there to wipe my hands a little bit from the flour flying all around. Sorry. Stop the mixer. Make sure to scrape the sides down and make sure everything's getting incorporated. Now we're going to add in the 2 bags of the English toffee bits. Again, I made this before, and I only used 1 bag because the recipe calls for 8 ounces or 1 cup, and it just wasn't enough. So I decided to use 2. Had a few spilled on the floor. Not the floor, sorry, good grief. The counter. Which my counters are clean, that's why I picked them up and put them in there. Mix that a little bit. Now it's time to get the cookie sheet and scoop and flash freeze them. Hang in there, we got 1 more cookie recipe. I know this has been a long video, but if anyone wants the recipes, again, leave a comment or email me, I will send it to you. Or if anyone wants just one of the videos, one of the cookies, I can load the video for that 1 cookie and you just watch that video. Just let me know in the comments or via email. They've been flash frozen. It's now time to bag them. There's the label. End up with 3 bags of these. I think it was 10 in each bag. Now back to the Roselyn cookbook, and we're going to make their buttermilk jumbles. This was the last cookie. This is number 12, and I'm going to tell you something. It was a struggle with these because it was like working with marshmallows. They were so light and fluffy, the cookie dough. And I had to let them stay in the freezer for a day and a half, I think, before I could finally work with them. But here I have the Crisco, basically every ingredient that I've got to cream. The Crisco, I think it's Crisco butter in there. And I was getting ready, I turned it on and it's like, it's not working. You don't have the mixer plugged in. That would help. It kind of scared me a little bit. I'm like, oh no, it's not working. I'm going to be using 2 large eggs. This is buttermilk, and I had to make the buttermilk. I had 2% milk, so I took a cup of 2% milk and added a tablespoon of vinegar. You can use vinegar or lemon juice. And it calls for soft as silk cake flour as the flour. not just all-purpose flour. And you add your other ingredients to the dry mix, and I'm just whisking that together. Make sure it's incorporated. Stopping the mixer, make sure everything's getting incorporated into the mix as it's creaming. Now we're going to add the eggs. We can add these at the same time. You don't have to add one and then let it incorporate and then add the other. Let the eggs mix in there. So yeah, you can make your own buttermilk at home as long as you have vinegar, or and that's white vinegar is what I use, the 5% white vinegar or lemon juice. Because I'm going to tell you, some buttermilk is expensive. Milk is expensive by itself anyway. Unless you use buttermilk a lot, I would highly encourage you to just make your own. Not to buy that plus other milk, 2% or whole fat milk. Sped up the mixer a little bit. And I'm showing the long process of this. I'm trying not to speed up too much of this, of the mixing of the ingredients, that is, in case anyone is interested in watching this recipe come together. Now I'm going to add that buttermilk. And I believe it called for 2/3 cup of buttermilk, so I made a cup and I just took 1/3 of it out of there. I'm adding the vanilla. Always my 2 tablespoons. Some of the vanilla splashed out of there. I should have used my spatula and mixed it a little bit and then turned the mixer on. You gotta remember to do that more often. But by now I'm tired. This is the 12th cookie recipe in 5 days. Thank God I was on vacation, but I was tired. Now we're going to add that dry ingredient mixture a little bit at a time, mix it up a little bit, and add a little bit more. And we'll just repeat that process. This I did speed up because you've seen me do this in another couple recipes. Scraping the sides of the mixer a little bit to make sure everything's getting incorporated. And I have to let this mix now for 4 minutes. I'm looking at my watch. I was going to set a timer, then I said, no, I'll see what time it is when I started, and I'll just keep an eye on it. So I let this mix together for 4 minutes. That's what the recipe calls for. And during that time, I'm going to tidy up a little bit, that flour everywhere. All out of eggs. I bought 36 eggs. I used all of that, and then I had some eggs already on hand. I used all of those too over these 12 recipes. I think I had about, I don't know, 8 or 10 eggs plus the 36 I had. Speeding up the video now a little bit. So it went to 4 minutes. Now I'm scooping out, and it's a very soft, light, fluffy dough. It reminds me of working with marshmallows, and it would stick to my scoop. So every so often I had to stop, scrape my scooper off with the spatula. And that's why, you know, after an hour I checked on it and it just was not, it had not firmed up enough. to be frozen. And this was the first time I made this recipe. My brother and I, we like these because when this bakery was open, it's now closed. We would get them sometimes and eat them. So that's why I wanted to make it, but my goodness, I did not know the dough was going to be that light and fluffy, which I should have known because the cookies are light and fluffy cookie. And this is when I tried it, and it's like, after an hour, I'm like, oh no, this isn't going to work. And I looked at it and said, yeah, no, this has to go back in to the freezer. So the next day, it's a little bit firmer, but still not as firm as I would like. So I used parchment paper at the bottom of the Ziploc bag, and I also put it on top of the Ziploc bag. And I added a note so that my siblings would know, do not put any cookies on top of these, because I think they would smash them and or make the individual cookies just all come into one big blob. So here I am bagging them up with the parchment paper on the bottom of the Ziploc bag, and I put it on top. See how this cookie is getting under my fingers as I'm bagging them up. If anyone has any other suggestions on dealing with this dough, please let me know. And you can see on the parchment paper as I'm picking up the cookies, the remnants of the dough of each cookie. And the longer I worked with them to bag them up, you know, they got softer because they got to room temperature a little bit. And I kid you not, it was like picking up melted marshmallows. So there they all bagged up, the note. And here's the totals. And this is what the cookies look like all on the counter. Now they're stacked. 3 or 4 bags of cookies on top of each other. But that's it. I'm gonna do a close-up. That's the Buttermilk Jumbles. World's Worst chocolate chip cookies. The M&Ms Cookies. The Oatmeal cookies, the plain ones, there's no mix-ins in those. Oatmeal chocolate chips. Oatmeal Raisin. Betty Crocker peanut butter cookies. Betty Crocker peanut butter cookies and Reese's. Buffys World chocolate chips. Some more Buffys World chocolate chips. Toffee cookies. Peanut butter chocolate chips. So all total, we made 336 pieces of cookie dough. And I was tired. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.